And in this special episode of the Happy Hustle podcast, we are sharing with you a presentation from our recent Montana Mastermind epic skiing adventure done by my bro, Mr. Garrett Gunderson. And he talked to us all about how to redefine wealth and how to achieve true financial freedom. We're just going to dive right into this episode of the Happy Hustle podcast.
Do you want blissful balance in your personal and professional life? Great. What's up, guys? My name is Kerry Jack, and I want to help you happy hustle a life you love, one full of passion, purpose, and positive impact. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, a professional model / actor, a digital marketing specialist, a podcast host, author, a biohacker, an eco-warrior, a martial artist, a hippie cowboy, and a humanitarian. My goal is to educate, inspire, and entertain you to live a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. It is time to happy hustle your dream reality. Yee!
Thank you. I brought every a book here, and if you're not good at reading, I got a children's book you could check out that just came out. Pictures for you, Grant. You love it. All right. Wealth is an emotion. Most people are being taught that wealth is about net worth. Net worth is something invisible that most people, you don't like carry it around with you. Nobody knows what your net worth is, and it doesn't actually do shit for you for the most part. It might create like forms of scarcity. Those two forms of scarcity are either playing not to lose, where people are trying to hold on to what they got, take what they can, always worried about if they're going to, if there's going to be enough. This is where my family kind of came from. My great-grandfather lived in San Giovanni in Fiore in Italy, and he got swindled. There was a mob there, and he's like, all right, I can't put food on the table. I'm going to go to America. Heard about these guys working in coal mines in Utah. So he hikes out of these crazy mountains to get to the port, comes to America. They change his name at the Ellis Island because he's so cross-eyed that I can't believe he had the vision to come to America, but he was so cross-eyed in fucking East Carbon, Utah. You know what I'm saying? But they change his name because he even speaks English. He gets to America, and then there's a coal mining disaster. And that coal mining disaster kills 104 coal miners, and all of a sudden the coal mine shuts down, so he becomes a goat herd. He lives in a tent in Utah, right? So it takes him 7 years to save up enough money to actually buy a home or rent a home and get his wife and his daughter to come to America. He meets his daughter for the first time, and she's 7 years old. When people go through that kind of a situation, it is like an imprint. You can even look at it from an epigenetic standpoint that can actually put fear into the body, and all of a sudden it passes on from generation to generation like folklore, saying, hey, you got to hold on to what you can, because if you don't have enough money, you might not be able to be around the people that you love, and you could lose everything. And so what happened is my family became misers, where they had the first dollar they ever earned. My great aunt applied for welfare, but she had $550,000 in her savings account because she never spent any money. Because poverty is a state of mind. It's a state of being. And people that are in the poverty mindset and playing not to lose, they believe in this finite pie, that there's only so much to go around, that everything's a zero-sum game, so it's always competitive. Hey, if that person has something, it's something I can't have, and so I got to take what I can while I can. I better hold on to it. And that is the thing, is scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth. No amount of luck, no saving, no discipline, no rate of return, no financial advisor will save someone stuck in the scarcity paradigm. It is the absolute disease that repels wealth. Now, everybody in here is pretty much an entrepreneur, right? See, we play a different game usually, but it's actually a form of scarcity, but it seems a little bit more elusive, and it seems a little bit more like rewarded, almost like people wear it like a moniker. Play to win, always about the future, never enjoying the present. It's this bullshit that you have to sacrifice in order to succeed. And everything's about then, never about now, and it's against wealth, because if wealth is about an emotion of feeling satisfaction and joy, I believe that wealth is about being present. And I don't care how much money you have. If you can't be present, you can't enjoy what you actually have. And so we have these two things that rob our wealth. Playing not to lose, and that's the misers that play a game called preservation. They just hold on to everything they can because they're afraid they're never going to have enough. Or people that are so conservative that they might have a diversified portfolio, but everything's about what they can do to delay and save for the future, never enjoying right now. Then you have the strivers. The strivers play a game called status. They think they could just work harder to make more money, but they inevitably burn out. That's where a lot of entrepreneurs are. And then the fourth one is the high roller. The high roller plays a game called opportunity, but they cut corners and take too much risk, and it leaves the short-lived riches. Those four money personas, which you'll learn about in Money Unmasked, that you have a free copy here, happy to sign it, as you said. If I fucking find you selling it on Amazon, then you got bigger problems than what I'm teaching about today, you know? So scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth, but here's the thing. Real wealth is created by understanding that you are your greatest asset. Not a stock, not a bond, not a piece of real estate. And the reason why the world is not wealthier and why people aren't feeling wealthier in America, because 60% of people that have $1 million or more in America don't feel wealthy. Again, it's because wealth is an emotion. The fuck was that?
What do you want? You know what it was. I gotta get my camera to film you.
All right, so here's what we're indoctrinated with as these notions of how to create wealth. This is the indoctrination. The first thing is, you've probably heard, oh, it takes money to make money. It takes money to make money. That's what people that want your money say. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes relationships and ideas. It takes value and exchange. Sure, you can make money on your money, but to really make money, it's about value, as we heard at the table earlier. Look, money doesn't give a shit about effort. That's the first thing we have to recognize. Money doesn't care about effort. Money cares about value. Money follows value. Yet we've been indoctrinated to think that money equals effort, so people put in all this effort and they destroy wealth, because wealth is 5-dimensional at least. Money is part of it. Anyone that says money is not important probably doesn't have much of it, right? I mean, I don't have a lot of things that are unimportant. But I feel like when it's abundant, you don't really think about it. But when it's not there, it's like suffocating, like not having enough air. The second is purpose. People that have avoided purpose but have money are often quite miserable because it usually meant that they inherited it, so they don't necessarily know what to do with it, and they feel a lot of guilt and shame around it. Purpose, when you can make purpose profitable, is one of the greatest ways to feel that feeling of wealth. The third dimension would be mindset, mentality. Like if you have all the money that you could ever spend, like I think you said, hey, people have more money than God, but they still feel poor. If you don't have the right mindset, all the money isn't going to cure it. Actually, it just feels like there's more to lose. The third is physical or health, energy. Health is wealth. There's even a thing like I would call genetic wealth. Genetic wealth is what is the habits, mindsets, and things that we pass on from generations to come so that they're not just spending their time in hospitals indoctrinated with Western medicine and not actually living a healthy life. That's the greatest risk to legacy, by the way, is that it gets decimated because people don't take care of their health, and all that money goes to hospitals rather than goes to quality of life. And then the fifth one is social. That's what we're good, Carrie's good at providing this for everybody. Social is relaxation, rejuvenation, recreation. It's designing a life that you love. Here's the thing. It's about creating a life you don't want to retire from. This whole notion of retirement is a fucked idea. It came because my dad was a coal miner. When you're a coal miner, you want to retire because you're working yourself to death. It came when there was assembly lines from the industrial age. But if you're an entrepreneur, number one, if all you want to do is build a business to sell it, I'm going to ask you, are you in the right business? The second thing is you don't have to retire by selling a business. You can retire in the business by designing a business that you get to do the things that you love the most, and other people love to do the things that you hate, so you actually still have the energy, and you actually just take trips along the way. You don't wait till one day, someday, when you're too old to fucking enjoy it. Who wants to go jet skiing when they're 85 and you might break your hip? You know what I'm saying? So this notion is we have to look at money in these dimensions and understand that wealth isn't about balance either. Wealth is really about depth and harmony. Depth means presence. Harmony means intention. So you're the author of your life and of your plan and of what wealth means to you, not what the world tells you that wealth is. Because if the world's going to tell you it's about net worth, and again, you can't often spend your net worth. It's a number on a piece of paper that almost no one knows but you, because if you talk about it, you're an asshole. Right? Like I remember going to this thing where all these people said they were billionaires, which told me that nobody in the room was actually a fucking billionaire. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of how it goes. Now, so this notion of accumulation, by the way, accumulation is the enemy. Accumulation is the villain in this story, because accumulation is this belief that it's how much money can you save times how much risk are you willing to take? Because we've been lied to and told that risk equals return. But risk actually means chance of loss. So how would increasing our chance of loss help us win? It wouldn't. See, the way that we actually reduce risk is first we have to understand that risk isn't in the investment, it's in you, the investor. And you've been lied to think that it's too complicated, so you have to rely on Wall Street. And what would we rely on Wall Street with any other thing? Wall Street Airlines, who would fly that here? Wall Street Daycare, you taking your kid there? Oh, sorry, we lost 7% of Kaizen today, but it was just toes. I think they're going to grow back, right? Plus, he had a bloody nose. It might have been because we mixed up the formula and the cocaine. I'm not sure. It was hard to say. But this notion of high risk equals high return is like some weird thing. I think like these Wall Street bros are like, hey, this investment sucks. What are you going to tell people? I don't know, take a bunch of risk and you get return. Risk equals chance of losing. And the greatest way that we lose our money is not being related to it, handing it to something we don't understand, then diversifying it into things that we know even less about, and waiting for 30 years hoping it's going to work out. The numbers are in. The U.S. Department of Labor says 95% of Americans are not financially independent at age 65. 95%. That's a faulty model. So I'm going to show you the shitty faulty model, then I'll give you the better model. So the third thing is they tell you time. Money times rate times time is the accumulation model and what they tell you with wealth. This is slow, it's dogmatic, and here's the thing. There's this thing that they talk about in this all the time that is going to be beloved, that you guys are going to be like, oh no, that's the best thing ever. They'll even lie to you and say that Einstein said that was great. Anyone heard that Einstein said that compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world? That's a fucking lie, but it's said all the time on Facebook, which had to be true. What he said was compounding numbers. And yet Security National Life in the 1920s bastardized and said compounding interest. Because let me just break this down for you. If you're a bank or a financial institution, what do you want from people? This is the money. How often? How long do you want to hold on to it for? How much do you want to give them back on a withdrawal? Into the 401k, right? You automatically put money into it every single month. You don't think about it. It's locked away till 59 and a half. And when you actually go to get the money from it, they tell you just to take the interest, and here's even worse. They told you to defer your taxes because you'll be in a lower tax bracket in the future. Who's here because they want to make less money in the future? That's insane. Like, how are you going to be in a lower tax bracket? You'd have to either have kids still at home under 18 years old in retirement age. The government would have to lower the taxes, which from 1944 to 1981, the top bracket was above 50% that entire time, right? Or you'd have to have less money. Inflation alone forces your taxes to go up over time because you have to have more money to buy the same things today, and if the tax rates remain the same, it pushes you to higher brackets as you make more money, even though you don't have more purchasing power. Does that make sense? So this whole thing of accumulation is a way to separate you from your money, have no knowledge about it, lose control over it, and then ultimately rely on things that when you finally get to, if you are going to retire, you become a slave to three things. The first thing is interest rates. Imagine those people that retired in 2022. Interest rates were so damn low that they're like, okay, if we want to put our money in something fixed income, we could have $1 million, but it's only kick off $25,000 a year. By the way, taxable if it was all in a 401k. That sucks. And then guess what happened? Interest rates went up. Well, if you're in fixed income, like bonds, guess what happens when interest rates go up to your bonds? They lose value. So now someone retires in 2022, they lose 4 or 5% of their portfolio in what was supposed to be safe. And then in 2023, what happened? Inflation kicked them right in the balls. So you have interest rate fluctuations, tax fluctuations, and inflation that are confiscating people's wealth in retirement. And this is what's even more insane. There's a movement for people to retire when they're 50. So now what? 40 years of scrolling the internet more often? Like, what the hell are you going to do for 40 years? Retired. And look, this is in a room like this. The older you get, the more wisdom you have. We're not all professional athletes that as we get older, we lose value on the court or on the field. In business, you gain wisdom, and you're going to tell me when you gain your most wisdom and can add the most value in the world and solve the biggest problems, you're going to do what? Why not just design the life that you enjoy now, taking those things you said you'll do in retirement along the way, so you still have the excitement and you're refreshed enough to bring the best you have when you're actually serving people? I don't know, I'm fucking yelling. I'm just excited here. This is what people are doing with their money. This is what they're doing. So here's what I would say to do differently. Let's work on velocity. So velocity is the philosophy that exchange creates wealth, that it's not a finite pie, that if I spend $1, it's not the end of the dollar's life. Someone else can take that dollar and they get to spend it too. And velocity measures how many times does that dollar circulate through the economy. And the more often it circulates because of goods, services, and experiences, the more wealth is created. It's a game of exchange. Exchange creates wealth. Yet everyone's being taught to budget. Look, if you're a train wreck, you have to budget. But I have a better methodology. It's called mindful cash management. Mindful cash management is this simple. You're going to take 15% of your income off the top. I'm going to show you how to get 10% through the 4 I's. The first I is the IRS. 93% of entrepreneurs are tipping the government. Not by a little, by a lot. Simply because they don't have proactive tax strategy, and I'm going to give you the framework. The second I is interest. Most people haven't structured their loans properly, haven't renegotiated the best interest rates, or haven't reallocated underperforming funds to pay off higher interest rate loans. And this costs people thousands of dollars per month if they're making good money, and that ends up being millions out of their life. In my book, What Would the Rockefellers Do?, we did a study where we said, what if we took people's 401k and we hypothetically doubled the rate of return on it? And then they competed against my efficiency expertise, and I said, what if I just focused on tax and interest and able to plug those leaks and make that more efficient? We ended up with people having 400% more money just plugging leaks than trying to double their rate of return, because the only way they were going to double the rate of return was taking a bunch of risk and maybe lose the money. So I'm here for what's guaranteed? What gives you control? What gives you access to cash along the way? What helps you enjoy your life along the way? Because look, if I help you find money tonight, which I'm going to do, it's not just about you building a better future, it's about building a better life today. I want you to consider, if I had extra money right now, what would help you increase your quality of life and your life design? What would make you feel wealthier because you can enjoy life along the way? I had this client. This is not my normal clientele. He's worth billions now, but at the time he's worth about $500 million. But he lived like a miser. He didn't have full furniture in his house. And I saw him one day on TV, and I was like, he looks like a homeless person on TV. So we had this strategy that was going to save him $120,000 a month. It wasn't anything really unique. He just buys a lot of inventory. And I was like, hey, we're going to get you this plum card. It's going to give you 2% back on all your inventory, and that's $120,000 per month. I said, I didn't tell him the strategy. I said, I'll tell you what the strategy is if you make me one promise. 10% of what we save you, you have to spend on yourself every month. And he's like, I don't know what I'd spend it on. I'm like, well, how about we start with a wardrobe? Here's Tyler from Nordstrom's. He's going to help you out. Literally hooked him up with Tyler, went and shopped. He loved it. He's like, what do I do with my old clothes? I'm like, we'd give it to the homeless, but we don't want them to feel bad. So, And then all of a sudden he started buying guns, and then he put a Nest system in his house. Then he put a music. It's like all of a sudden he unlocked and started to feel wealthier. Now he's worth billions of dollars, but it was $12,000 a month. Transformed his life because he said, I'm valuable enough to spend money on myself. I want to just consider most people's relationship with money is fucked up, right? And here's where a lot of the culprit is. We've been indoctrinated to think that expenses are bad. When I say the word expense, does anyone feel like a sinking feeling? Or when you hear expense, do you think eliminate, reduce, cut out, no fun, don't enjoy life, don't invest in yourself, wait till one day, someday, and then you'll finally die and your kids will just blow it? Because if you read the book, The Millionaire Next Door, it was all about if you become a broke, miserable millionaire, you too can die with millions of dollars, so your kids will blow it. It's literally what they need to write about after that book is that many of the kids that come from families that are the millionaire next door, they've never talked about money, so when they get it, they fuck it up, right? So we have to redefine expenses into 4 categories, and this goes back to mindful cash management. The first category is a destructive expense. Destructive expenses are borrowing to consume. That's destructive. Paying for things that you don't utilize. That's destructive. It's wasteful. If you want to know what that looks like, just look up the Doge. So, it's uncontrolled vices, anything that leads you away from the life that you want. The second type of expense is a lifestyle expense. Lifestyle expenses are some of the best expenses. The things that you might, maybe you like to go to a nice restaurant. Maybe there's certain hunting gear that you like to buy. Maybe you like to take trips. Lifestyle expenses, just pay cash for them. But the third type of expense is where most of the middle class is neglectful, and this is why they lose wealth over time. 95% of people are not financially independent, not because of a lack of effort, but because of a faulty framework and not addressing this third type of expense, which is a protective expense. Protective expense is insurance that transfers risk. It's asset protection that means you own nothing but control everything. It's liquidity so that if you have some type of cash flow crunch because of a health issue or a family issue or a business change or a partnership issue or your ads get shut down, whatever it is, you've got staying power. I call that a peace of mind fund. When you have enough cash to do the best choices, you don't have to make bad profits. You know what bad profits are? Taking on an asshole client. That's a bad profit. Not worth it. But if you don't have enough liquidity, it could be an issue. So protective assets, everyone in this room is in store for financial surprises of the future. It's just they don't have to derail or destroy you. And 90% of them, we can make sure that they don't even touch you by having your protective expenses. Now, the fourth type of expense is the game changer, and it's a productive expense. It would be foolish to budget a productive expense. When we have a self-liquidating offer on our What Would the Rockefellers Do book ad, we continue to raise the amount we spend until it's no longer self-liquidating, and we adjust. So we don't have a budget because we look at what the profitability is. So anytime I'm putting money into something and I make more money from it, I just say, do I have the capacity to deliver world-class customer service? And as long as the answer is yes, I keep putting money into it. If it creates too much constraint in the business, I scale it back and then I grow the business. See, budgeting is what most of these gurus are going to have you do in this old model. Hey, if it takes money to make money, you better reduce your expenses. But if you're always thinking about how am I going to have enough money in my retirement account and how am I going to eliminate expenses, how will you be wealthy where you feel present, happy, and joyful? Most people are going, I'm going to live a shit life so that one day I can finally live a good life when I'm too old to enjoy it. And by the way, if you have habits of a shit life, you don't flip a switch in retirement and be like, cool, I'm no longer a miser and an asshole. I'm just going to be so much fun. I'm finally going to pay one of the bills. You know, you've been to dinner with those friends with the short arms. You know what I'm saying? Or they can go to the bathroom right when the bill comes. It's amazing. I took some friends to Italy. They were with me for a month. They didn't pay for one fucking thing. Every time the bill came, they were magically somewhere else, right? So they don't just one day all of a sudden get really abundant, and they don't all of a sudden become really generous. And if we get in these habits of scarcity and accumulation, it starts to become who we are. So mindful cash management is you just simply pay yourself first by setting up a separate account. Every time you make a deposit, you make a certain percentage automatically sweep into that account, and you don't have to budget. You just look at that account once a week and say, am I not going out of bounds? Whatever's left over, I'm not spending more than that, and then you classify your expenses once a month. Anything destructive that I need to eliminate, how am I doing on my lifestyle where I'm just paying cash for it, any protective things I need to address, and what's productive, let's add more money to the productive account. Now let's get to velocity here. So velocity, it's pretty late to be talking economics, but it's basically GDP, our gross domestic product, or output, divided by the money supply. Okay, now, the way that accumulation retirement planning teaches you is the way you're going to have more output is by reducing lifestyle. So more money will go into your account and less money will be in your life. Simplistic. I used to drive a 75 Chevy pickup truck. Started, the carburetor would stick, gas would spew everywhere. It got gallons to the mile, right? Now, if I took that to a retirement planner, like just put more gas in it, guess what you could do? Fix the leaks, get a more efficient engine. That's what we're looking at here with velocity. So how does velocity work on a personal level? It's your output, your personal finances, divided by your input. So you can budget, or you can be more efficient. Being more efficient is the 4 I's: IRS, interest, investments, and insurance. So investments, there's a lot of non-performing fees, there's a lot of hidden commissions, there's a lot that we could do just to stop that issue of those leaks. Like, if you had 100 grand earning 10% for 30 years, it grows to $1.74 million if there's no tax. If there's 0.8% of fees, less than 1%, you get 9.2, it grows to 1.4 million. That's a $340,000 cost. You thought it was a mere less than 1%, but it's logarithmic. It's basically compounding your cost because it doesn't have that, compound interest going. So we want to plug those leaks. The fourth I is insurance. Most people insure inconsequential things. If you only insure the catastrophic, not the inconsequential, you end up keeping a lot more money and transferring risk. So I'll give you resources and all this. So efficiency makes a huge difference. But here's the game changer here too. It's like the fourth type of expense. What if you just increased your output? Like if you're told to live within your means, you can budget, be more efficient, or expand your means. That's the game. Expand your means. How do you expand your means? Reach and impact. How do you reach more people? How do you more deeply impact the people you reach? So everything from scale and leverage to efficiency to like all the shit you learn from all these great people that are here are all the ways that you could do that. So velocity is going to be the key. Now, I'm going to show you like why it's totally backwards and how to reverse it. In finance, you guys all know a balance sheet, right? It's just your assets versus your liabilities. So in accumulation, it's all about building your balance sheet. But your balance sheet is just a snapshot in time and its stored potential. So what if you could have someone that has a $5 million 401k, they could have a $5 million home, and they might have no loan against that home. Now, there's going to be a liability on the 401k because they have to pay tax, right? So this is someone that's worth $10 million. But I've seen people with this much money live like paupers. Because this is a lazy asset. The home's not providing them any cash flow. The $5 million, this is what's crazy. People that hate paying tax today hate paying it more when they're old. So if you've been deferring your taxes and you have no exit strategy on that, this might be 100% tax because you won't spend it. So tax deferral is not the same as tax savings. I'm going to give you the tax saving structures tonight. And if you do tax defer, you better have exit strategies that offset those taxes. So if everything in accumulation, which remember was wealth equals money times rate times time, is to build the balance sheet, that's like going your whole life saying, hey, I'm going to prepare to be a marksman, but I'm going to wait and save my energy. I'm not going to shoot for 30 years. And then 30 years from now, I'm going to shoot for the first time. And that'll make me a better shooter. Hell no. So this whole model is you don't learn how to create cash flow your whole life. And now when you retire, the outcome of your income comes from cash flow that you never figured out how to create. You see how bullshit this is? How backwards this is? So instead of starting with the balance sheet, my recommendation is you start with your income statement. Your income statement is your income versus your expenses. And the very first thing for anyone that wants to accelerate wealth, first thing is always make more money.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Apologies for interrupting your programming, but I have to tell you, the best investment you can make in yourself is one in which helps you acquire skills. You've probably heard people talk about, oh, just invest in yourself and you'll be successful. Yes, that's true to a degree, but you have to invest in skills that will ultimately help you achieve your desired results. And I think one of the best skills one can possess, be it an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, is the sales sword. Really knowing how to sell, utilizing pressure-free persuasion, which will make you more money and more impact. Now, if you want to know how to sell more efficiently and effectively, I just launched a sales course called The Proven Roadmap Process to Selling Millions of Dollars and helping you to increase your conversions guaranteed. And you can get access to this new sales course that The Happy Hustle is launching at thehappyhustle.com/sales. And if you act fast, you'll get it at the lowest price it'll ever be available, because we are launching it and we want to gain amazing testimonials and social proof to further share this knowledge. So if you act fast, you can get it at the lowest price it'll ever be. That's at thehappyhustle.com/sales. Now let's get back to this episode.
That's the first piece. How do we make more money? Well, let's look at a bigger balance sheet here. So the balance sheet, there's a financial balance sheet. I'm going to call your property value or your financial one. But below the dotted line, I'm going to call this your human life value balance sheet. Your human life value is like, think about all the knowledge that Joey has about creating your future, feeling the emotion of the future, being stuck in the past. That's like that human life value. He can unlock 84,000 people to live better lives. That comes from his skill sets, knowledge, and look, there's exponential skill sets. Anyone here worried about inflation? The best way to beat inflation is exponential skills. Communication, exponential skills. Sales, marketing, financial intelligence, emotional intelligence, all this kind of shit. Yet most people are taught to scrimp, save, sacrifice, delay, defer, which means they're so focused on their balance sheet of their finances, and this is what's most fucked, is you're taught to grow your money, but if you don't grow your financial intelligence or grow yourself, that gap is called risk. Those people that bought Bitcoin but didn't know what they were buying, like I have a client that owned 80,000 Bitcoin. And he sold it before it hit $1 because he didn't have the human life value to understand what he had. He mined it and didn't have the human life value. I know a lot of people like, oh, that person's lucky. I know people that think people that own Bitcoin are lucky. I know people that spent thousands of hours studying it before buying it that are worth tens of millions of dollars. It's part of their investor DNA. Your investor DNA is your values. What are the things that are important to you? It's your competencies. Where do you have skill sets, insights, and knowledge? And what are your drivers? Where do you have a passion and a zeal for learning? If you learn what your investor DNA is, you're going to ignore 80% of the investments out there, which, by the way, are going to be distractions disguised as opportunity. You're going to focus on only the investments that align with who you are, and you delve in and create the expertise. That's the game. Entrepreneurial finance is different than the rest of the world. The rest of the world, if they're saying, I'll take a W-2 job, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to set somebody in a 401k, and I'm going to retire when I'm 65, they could fuck off with my advice. They're not going to like it. My advice is, if you're an entrepreneur, you have so much more opportunity. You have so much more possibility. And if you ignore the making more money first, who gives a shit about growing your money if you don't know how to grow it? Anyone in here lost money on stupid investments over their life? Anyone been told something that sounded amazing and didn't quite work out? The thing is, this is what happens. We want to believe, but if it were that fucking easy, then why wouldn't we make it that easy in our business? We're sold a lie about it. And then we buy into this belief thinking that somehow we're going to make up for lost time, that we're going to get, some huge thing. And this is why people buy lottery tickets. A lottery is a tax on the poor. And yet people buy it in hopes they're going to win, even though there's no statistical significant chance that they're going to win, because they've given up on their own dream. And most people don't dream because they have three things they're concerned about. I don't have the money. Guess what? If you dream big enough, you'll find the money. Second, I don't have the ability. It's not about your ability. It's about what your vision is, compelling other people to bring their ability to the table. Grow your team, you grow your business. And then the third thing is, I don't have the time. People that say they don't have the time are just shitty at managing their life. Like when people tell me they don't have time, I'm like, I'm sorry that you haven't read a few books. I'm sorry you're a people pleaser. I'm sorry that you don't know how to tell people no, that you don't stand for the greatness that you deserve to have in this world, because the reason I just don't have a lot of compassion for it, because these are the three lies people tell me. I have people tell me they don't have money to come to something like this, and guess what? They've got $500,000 in a 401k. But they've compartmentalized it, and they don't want to hurt their balance sheet to grow themselves. So the first thing in accelerating wealth is making more money. Well, guess what? The way you make more money is you might have to actually create an expense, a productive expense, to build your skills. And this is why so many people are not entrepreneurs. Because in entrepreneurship, you build a platform. You discover and develop yourself. And it might take a long time before you see it's like all these overnight success stories of someone that worked their ass off for 10 years and then it came together. You have to be patient and consistent enough to believe in yourself and to overcome all the fear, doubt, and worry that other people try to promulgate on you. But here's the deal. If your vision's bigger than your problems, you'll find a way to get there. But you have to be willing to invest in yourself. This is what investing in yourself looks like. You increase your human life value, and there's a delay between here and here. But once you increase your human life value, guess what? Those skills create more income. Because the assets are your internal assets. The ability to cast and create a vision, the ability to hire, the ability to create something, the ability to package content and deliver it in a way that's valuable, the ability to speak or write or whatever it is. It's really investing in yourself, but most people won't do it fully because if they give their money to someone else and it doesn't work out, they have someone to blame. But if we do it ourselves, and this is where I got to say, this is why it's amazing that I'll be married 23 years, June 1st, that I can dream as big as I want, and she creates a safe space that if I don't hit that full dream, she knows that the timeline was just wrong and she's willing to continue on forward. And that's the thing, part of our problem is we create artificial short deadlines of when we think we have to accomplish something because we've compared ourselves to someone else instead of our vision to ourself and commit to getting there no matter what. And so this is the invest in yourself, then you grow your income. Now here's the deal. In velocity, We're not trying to create accumulated assets. I don't want any asset that isn't growing myself or creating cash flow. So when I'm investing, I'm trying to build cash flowing assets here. Everybody's being taught, save 10% of your income, chase a 10% return, wait for 30 years. 95% of the time it doesn't work. I'm telling you, create cash flowing assets that 100% of your income now comes from your cash flowing assets. The biggest cash flowing assets are these. One, businesses. Whether you start it from scratch or whether you acquire a business, businesses are cash flow machines, right? If you know how to do it. Number two, real estate. I fucking hate real estate, but some people love it. I ended up talking to bankers, attorneys, maintenance people, tenants, never like that. This is my real estate right here. That's the third category, and this is the category not enough financial people talk about. Intellectual property is the game changer. I have friends that were worth $100 million, but when they wrote a book, now they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and have a fucking amazing network. And they accelerate relationships because now all of a sudden, when someone reads your book, they feel like they know you and you have a great conversation. It's like, and by the way, this is like vinyl. I have record players, the records come to the house, we open it up, we take time. Guess where people read their books? In fucking bed or on the shitter. Pretty intimate places. It's not just a video. It's something where I can put my best foot forward even when I'm not around. So intellectual property is the third key category for cash flowing assets. This is why a W-2 isn't going to look at this, because the W-2 looks at their income as their asset. I want you to look at your self as your asset, your business as your asset, and then get really good at one category. Don't try to be in multiple businesses and, totally different unrelated real estate things like commercial and residential. Like most people get diversified, and distracted. You get really focused, you get damn good at it, and you protect it. And when your assets can create enough cash flow for your income, guess what? Your active income grows your assets, and it's a 10 times advantage. Because now every active dollar can build assets instead of 10% of your money being set aside to accumulate. It's a game changer. But if you start developing your skills down here, your human life value will increase your property value. If you try to increase your property value without human life value, that's delusional. That's called risk, but that's where we've all done mistakes by investing in things that we don't know. The more we invest in things we don't know, the more susceptible we are to outside forces governing our emotions. Because then I just know people that were popping pills on a flight because the stock market went down the other day. And by the way, I love it because it was like, oh, the stock market lost $1.7 trillion. I'm like, that money wasn't lost, it was transferred. It was transferred. It didn't go away. Someone else took the money out of the market and put it in cash, or put it in real estate, or somewhere else, but they try to make us think it's gone. Guess how it was transferred? Through the ignorance tax. One person knew better than the other. And it's because people are investing without knowledge, because they're told it's too complicated, and they're mindless about it, and this is why they're not mastering their money. So, all right, let me give you the practical stuff. I want to give you the philosophical stuff here, because this is the framework. This book isn't really going to cover any of what I'm covering here. This book's about you. It's about your relationship to money, how to heal that relationship to money, how to understand what's behind money and what you're really looking for, that money's shielding you from actually experiencing, and how you'll have more money once you discover it. So I think you'll enjoy the book. But practically, in the 4 I's, let's just focus on the IRS because it's getting late. But with the IRS, there's 3 categories that I want you to think about. There's your team, there's your deductions, and there's the classification of your income. So when I say 93% of entrepreneurs are overpaying on their taxes, it's by $11,430 per $250,000 of revenue, and it goes up each $250,000. By the time it's $1 million, it's usually in the 40,000 plus, or it's usually more like the 60,000 plus. It's not just linear. It's just there's way more opportunity and you have a higher tax bracket. And when you save tax, you save it against your highest bracket, not your lowest bracket. So the team is up to 4 people. So the first one is you've just got to have like a bookkeeper or a CFO or a controller, because timely data will save you tax. If you're talking about last year's taxes today, guess what? Every strategy they give you is a deferral strategy, not a deduction. Like if you put money in a 401k or a SEP IRA, let's say you put $10,000 and you're like, awesome. If you're in a 30% bracket, you're like, I just saved myself $3,000, but you didn't. Because there's not $3,000 in your pocket. That $3,000 isn't in your life. It's in the plan. So the reason you didn't pay that $3,000 in tax is you deferred your income into the future in a government qualified plan. And if you want your money out the next day, bad news, you owe $4,000. And you actually only have $6,000. So you're at a $1,000 disadvantage from day one in this plan. We're like, oh, but it's going to be uninterrupted compounding and it's going to grow. Yeah, so is your tax going to compound. So the problem with these plans is that you don't even own them. They're not creating cash flow, and there's no exit strategy for most people. So they're putting all of their eggs in this basket that's one-dimensional that doesn't leave them in a place to create the life that they want. And it often drags against their life because they're trying to fund this at the expense of hiring good people. Most businesses would absolutely transform if they just hired A-teamers, which are about 20% more expensive, to get 200% more done. You see that rate of return? Can't beat it in anything in finance. It'll even beat Bitcoin. So this is I want you to be careful on that. This isn't about deferral, but you got to have timely data. If you get timely data and you meet with your accounting team once a quarter, you're going to save tax just on that. The second is you need a tax strategist instead of a historian. Historians tell you what you owe. Anyone have that accountant? Hey, congratulations, here's what you owe. That sucks, that conversation. A tax strategist proactively navigates throughout the year, every quarter, and says, what are we going to do? How do we maximize your tax deductions? So the strategist is going to look at your deductions. A historian just tells you what you owe. The third, and this is where you're going to save most of your money in taxes, you need an attorney. If you're making more than $1 million of revenue, that's a tax attorney. If it's less than $1 million, it's a corporate attorney. Most people don't have a tax attorney, and this is where I get 2/3 of my tax advantages through my tax attorney. The fourth one is, anyone own their own building? Anyone? Okay, yeah, so cost segregation, you can get an engineer, and you can accelerate your depreciation for tax purposes. You can ask me about that later. But I'm going to go into the deductions, because deductions are pretty simple. Number one, every time you spend money, ask, could this relate to my business? If it's a definitive yes, you just track it, right? Simple tracking. There's apps, there's whatever's easiest for you. But if you're not sure, then you just, in your quarterly meeting, ask, can I write this off? So when I went to Italy for a summer, I got on with my accounting team before we went. I'm like, hey, I want to write off my Italy trip. And they laughed. I said, no, I'm going to host a one-day mastermind. Everybody comes to the villa. I'm going to go where my great-grandfather's from. We're going to take a drone. We're going to film there. We got to have our corporate meeting for every company that we have, because I think better in Italy than I do in Utah. So, and by the end of it, I got to write off 55% of the trip, right? That's just, you have a conversation. And if you have someone that just tells you why you can't deduct things, you probably have the right person, or the wrong person. You want someone that can say, hey, in this case you could, this case you couldn't, or this is what percentage you could deduct. So ask the question. Now here's the deductions that most people miss. 132J. Anyone have a pool, cold plunge, hot tub, gym in their house? If you have a company that's just your family, which I always recommend to have a company that's just your family, 132J says you can write off all the maintenance of all those things for that business. So how about a home office? Anyone not take a home office deduction? Whatever percentage the size of your office is to your home, all the utilities are the same percentage written off for the business, and whatever the cost of the home, that percentage of the home office. I've had accountants say you can't do that. You can do that since 1996, by the way. So if you have an accountant that tells you no, it's in the tax code. I'm so tired of entrepreneurs going to their accountant, they say that you can't do it. I'm conservative. Conservative means lazy, antiquated, and not doing their job, just so you know. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've had 2 people owe money in an audit. One was my fault. I paid the tax. It was minor. I just was young. I forgot to tell them about one thing. My fault. I was in my 20s. The other one, they were transitioning to our accounting team. I don't know whose fault it was. It was $5,500. We have every time someone gets audited, which isn't very often, we play a game. How much more will we save? We have a unique process. As soon as someone gets audited, they're not allowed to talk to the IRS. And when we go in organized, and we go in on the aggressive. We say, hey, we didn't have this write-off, and we didn't do this. So we just find out how much we can save, and as soon as you start saving, they leave. And by the way, who do you think's smarter, my tax attorneys or the IRS? We're not doing anything offshore. We're not doing anything that increases. We have one thing that increases audit risk for 1 in 30 clients that we even talk about. But there's no worries here. 280G, who's heard of the Augusta rule? Okay, so 280G, you rent out your home 14 days a year to your business. That's a tax write-off for the business. You don't have to claim that as personal income. That's just easy money. right? Section 199A. If you're not doing 199A, it took me from 37.5% tax to 29%. It's a qualified business deduction. If you have employees, how you tax your LLC or S Corp, and with those employees will lower your taxes. 199A. I mean, there's like 100 deductions. I'm just going to give you the guide. Go on to Instagram, Garrett B. Gunderson, and just put in Sledgehammer. So I know it's this group, and you'll find out Sledgehammer. Or just put Carrie Jack or Happy Hustle. I'm just going to give you the tax navigator. You just go through the checklist, know everything you need to do on the tax side. Let's move to, because this is the one that's going to be more unique. How you classify your income. There's 4 ways to do it. Active to passive. We want to move it to passive for tax purposes. Instead of ordinary income, we want to move it to capital gains if you're making a lot of money. At least if you're making $650,000 up, this is a no-brainer. Third one is tax-free. And the fourth one is called arbitrage, tax arbitrage. I'll tell you what all these are. Active to passive, you could simply be an S corporation. You could take a reasonable salary, which isn't what you're worth, it's what you'd pay someone else, and take the rest in distributions. Distributions avoid 15.3%, but into perpetuity, they avoid 3.2%. By taking 2 checks instead of 1, you're saving yourself thousands and thousands of dollars. Super simple. If you own the building, there's a few people that own their building, charge yourself the highest comparable rent, because that's 1099 income rather than taking W-2. That's much more efficient. Those are just a couple examples. There's a lot of ways to do it. Ordinary income into capital gains. Well, first off, when you own a business, that's a capital gain asset. When you own real estate, that's a capital gain asset. That's great. But if there's anyone that's doing business internationally but lives in the United States, you can set up an international sales corporation. All your income's capital gains when it comes in from other countries. They want the money back in the U.S. So you go from 37.5% to 20%. This is one example. Tax-free. Anyone, I know I said you're in the wrong business if you're planning on selling your business, but anyone going to potentially sell their business in the future? If you're ever going to potentially sell your business, a C corporation has something called Section 1202, which you can sell up to $10 million per partner tax-free if it's been around for at least 5 years and it's a certain qualified business. I see tons of businesses that don't do it. They pay the tax unnecessarily because most of your tax savings on selling is what you do now, not what you do right before you sell. I get people all the time that they're like, I'm selling my business, just signed the letter of intent. I'm like, cool, there goes 3/4 of our strategies. Could have done it before, but now that there's a letter of intent, we've lost most of those strategies. My favorite tax-free strategy is a charitable remainder trust. If you're charitable in nature, which, Grant could tell you about some charities if you need to know where to do this with. But if you're charitable in nature, you can donate your capital gain assets to a charity, sell it tax-free. You're the first beneficiary, so you get to take income off the full asset versus a reduced asset, and you get a tax advantage for the donation that you get to take that year and up to 5 years later. It's just like, it's a great strategy because it allows you to give your money away and still spend more money by giving it away. Otherwise, you would have given it to the government, right? There's more strategies there, but those are a couple. And then arbitrage is, I'm sure a lot of people in this room have probably made a mistake of spending $1 to save 37 cents. You buy something you wouldn't have bought otherwise just to save the tax. I would never do that unless I'm spending $1 and I get more than $1 back. So in the United States, everything around art is donation-based, where in Europe, it's all purchasing. So all the museums in Europe, they buy the art. If you go around the United States, it's all donated. So everything, like I bought millions of dollars of art for hundreds of thousands of dollars because you can go to an art dealer, they'll buy collections from an artist, and you agree not to sell it in the open market. And after you've owned it for 3 years, you can donate it to museums, and you get the full appraised value, which is a 6-to-1 deduction, which ends up being at least $2 for every dollar you spent. That's tax arbitrage. So I never want to spend $1 to save 37 cents if I can spend $1 and get $2 back. Make sense? So look, I just want to give you like a basic understanding here of kind of taxes. The tax navigator, I'll just hook all of you guys up with it. And I just wanted you to understand a little bit of the philosophy that accumulation isn't your friend. You want to become economically independent, and you can get there in 10 years or less. You don't have to wait 30 years. Cash flow to cover your expenses, that'll take care of the lifestyle. Then active income builds more assets, and you continue to increase your lifestyle all the time because you're increasing your assets, creating that cash flow. And then you scale your lifestyle in a much bigger way without suffocating or harming your business. It's a completely different way of thinking. It's you start with your income statement first, grow your income, right? So 1, grow your income. 2, keep more of the money you make, which I gave you just the IRS. There's 3 other I's: interest, investments, insurance. 3, Then you grow your money, but you only use investor DNA principles. You stop investing in a lot of things, get really focused on a few things, and grow those. It simplifies everything, and you'll get much better returns. And the fourth one, it's always growing yourself. It's always about develop the human life value aspects, because the way that people become billionaires isn't because they're good at saving money, it's because they're good at creating massive value. And so the entire notion that budgeting is going to make people wealthy is fucking laughable and frustrating to me. Every fucking guru that's on TV is talking about a budget. Budgeting isn't what matters. Mindful cash management is pay yourself first, don't spend more than what you make, and then you have to get ticky-tacky about every little dollar that's going out, and you start increasing productive expenses and you watch life expand. Wealth, nobody shrinks their way to wealth. It's a game of expansion. It's a game of velocity. So I'll kind of final point here. On legacy, there's a lot to talk about with legacy, but I'll even hook you up with my What Would the Rockefellers Do audio, because that book's, it's one of the more definitive books on legacy. It's sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and, the philosophy is this. I'll kind of show it in a corporate sense first of how it worked, and I'll show you what this means for a family. So GE in the 1950s was like, hey, we want to become the number one company in every one of our categories. And some of our categories, we're starting to suffer. We're not doing well. The only way we're going to be number one is if we recruit the very best talent, but they're working for the competitors. So they came up with an idea called the pension. Like, we'll offer them a pension, and we'll go recruit them, and if they work for us for a certain amount of time, we'll pay them this pension even after they're done, because we'll get so much growth and we'll dominate the industry. So how would they fund that? It was pretty smart. They just basically said, all right, when they work for us, we're going to put money into a life insurance policy, so we'll have a death benefit. We're going to use a permanent policy, a whole life type of policy, so that when they die, the death benefit will replenish everything we paid them, plus give us a rate of return, and it's tax-free. But what they did is they used the cash value growth to supplement the retirement. Now, back then, these people died pretty early. They worked a lot, they chain smoked, so they basically were able to fund the entire thing with the cash value after they retired. The death benefit replenished that and more, okay? This is the same thing the Rockefellers did. So the Rockefellers are entering their 7th generation of passing on wealth. And most people, they don't go past 3 generations. It's shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. The Vanderbilt family had more money than the U.S. Treasury at one time. They were monsters. They had so much money. And when Cornelius died, he had actually spent a lot of time with his eldest son, and he doubled the estate in 9 years. But when his eldest son died, it was the last time the estate ever grew, and 54 years later, the first Vanderbilt died broke. They owned 10 mansions in Manhattan. Those are gone. They own the Breakers in Rhode Island. They don't own it anymore. They don't own the Biltmore Estates in the Carolinas. They lost it all because they just learned how to spend money and not much else. They didn't do 2 things that the Rockefellers have done, and everyone that was an executive for the Rockefellers have done these same things, and they're still passing on wealth for 6 generations too. They simply set up trust. Specifically, type of trust today, to make it really easy, is a domestic asset protection trust. It's a way that you can have an irrevocable trust, which means you don't own it. It's a trust that owns your assets, but you still control it because you can determine the distribution trustee. So Kerry could say, Garrett's my distribution trustee, and if I'm like, I don't want to give him the money, he can fire me and hire Grant, and then Grant can give me the money. So it's arm's length, but you now have that out of your estate, spelled out what you want to have happen with it, and then you buy life insurance on yourself, because that death benefit comes in tax-free when you die, which helps to offset interest fluctuations, tax fluctuations, inflation. It replenishes the trust, but then you actually buy policies on your kids. But here's how you buy them on your kids. You can all pay your kids up to $13,000 tax-free. That could then fund the policy that grows tax-free, and that benefit comes in tax-free, so it perpetuates in a tax-free environment. So when you die, it funds a family bank inside the Rockefeller Trust, and then when they die, it funds it in each generation, so that, and by the way, you just finance everything as a family versus through banks. So now your family earns the interest rather than the banks earning the interest. So that's kind of the Rockefeller method plan, which means when you save money on tax and interest and fees and insurance, you can actually fund a cash value policy, which has done better than bonds in any 30-year period of time. So it's like just your asset allocation for your safety and savings. It's available along the way if there's good investment opportunities. The death benefit comes in and replenishes it. So I know I'm covering a lot, but the reason this is important is because then if you have a death benefit, you can do a charitable trust knowing that you're not going to just inherit your family. Or if you're the person that has a $5 million paid off home, you can use the death benefit as collateral and get the $5 million out of the home without having to make a payment during your lifetime. And the death benefit pays it off when you die, and it's tax-free. So all I'm doing is I want to give you more freedom and options in the future by, number one, creating velocity, plugging your financial leaks so you can keep more of what you make, automate your savings, deliberately invest within alignment with investor DNA, grow yourself and your business, and get really selective with where you allocate your funds so it's not a distraction. That's the entire philosophy. If you adopt that, you're going to have 10 times more wealth than the accumulation model. It just is. The numbers prove it, the philosophy's proven, and you will lose some money sometimes because you might make an investment that doesn't work out, but at least you'll fucking learn from it because it's aligned with your investor DNA. And you go like, okay, what would I do different next time? So when someone comes up with this idea that sounds great but probably isn't great, you're going to have the power to say no. It's not part of your plan. It's not worth it. Let's see. All right, so look, it's kind of intense. But I will say this. I was just telling Joey about this. So we just recently, we launched a program last year. I'd been in finance for 25 years, sold my Inc. 500 business in 2021. And I was like, nah, I still want to do it. So built a new company. And we developed a process where we do a deep dive with people. We just go through and ask questions. And then we do a report of findings. And we show you how much tax you're likely to save, what asset protection would shield you from risk, how you can improve your cash flow, what other things are out of place that would be, blind spots. I'm just going to give it to everybody here for free, okay? It's 2 meetings, the deep dive and the report of findings, because after the deep dive, we bring it in, the financial team looks it over, says, here's all the things that can happen, all right? If you want that, fill out this card and just give it back to me, okay? Just fill out the card and give it back to me, and I'll make sure that we hook you up with that, all right, on me. And then I will be honest, like most people end up hiring us, but it's not that expensive. Joey just hired me in January. It's like he does the hiring program because he's a badass. So that was 30 grand, but it's all one-on-one, me and him. But most people, they're just doing a $2,500 down, $500 a month. I teach every fucking week because just like you can't go to the gym once a year and get results, why do we think we can meet with a financial person once a year and get results? The financial gym I teach every week. Make more money, keep your money, grow yourself in a group setting. A lot of energy, a little bit of humor, not as intense as tonight. And then you have a one-on-one person to help you implement everything. We have tax firms, we have law firms, we have investment advisory services. So everybody's communicating and they're coordinated. So if that sounds good to you, we'd love to help you out. Happy to sign the books. Definitely give it a read. It's my highest rated book. Feel free to rate it. I never asked for rate. Like, I have 2,600 reviews almost on What Would the Rockefellers Do? A book about fucking insurance. Why? I write a book, I'm like, that'll be a throwaway book. It's my most popular book by far. And this is my book I spent 7 years writing, and so I'd like to see a few more reviews on it. But you don't have to do it, But yeah, feel free to, I'm happy to sign it. There's also a QR code just like for the audiobooks I mentioned tonight. So What Would the Rockefellers Do on audio and stuff, you can just click that QR code. You'll get an email from me once a week if you do. I try to sell shit every now and again, but not much. Like my books mainly, because I love selling books. So, questions?
Let's clap it up.
Yeah. It's the least humorous speech I've given in a long time.
So much value. Thank you.
Yeah.
You said the 132J.
Yeah.
You said it has to be a family business. What do you
Well, if you take 132J, whoever's in that business, every employee has to have access to the facilities. So the way I set up companies.
Here, do you want a napkin? Clean it off or-
Yeah. So the way I would set up a company is I always recommend people have a holding company. So I have my IP company. It's called Ripwater, right? That's my IP company. It's my holding company. My wife owns 10%. So it employs my 2 kids. But then I have other companies. Wealth Labs, it's my consulting company, Then I've got Legacy Method. Like I have these different, then there's partners in these. But Ripwater owns all those. So when it's time for these write-offs, Ripwater's taking the majority of the write-offs because there's no partners other than me and my wife. Where if I want to take write-offs in legacy method, it hurts my partners. So you want to have an entity that you can take things like 132J and 280G through that entity as your holding company that won't impact the valuation of all your other companies. But what I also do is I make these companies, like Wealth Labs, every time I get a consulting gig, they have to pay Ripwater 15% because they're using Ripwater's IP. It also meant when I sold Wealth Factory, I got to keep a lot of the intellectual property, which is what I really cared about. So, yeah.
For you. So I take care of, my parents are divorced, but I take care of both sets of parents.
Mm-hmm.
One, I pay as a consultant in my business, and that's how I basically give money to him.
Yeah.
And then the other is my mother, who I don't pay at all. I pay for her, but I don't have her employed in the business, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you have strategies? Two questions. Number one, around sort of quasi-dependent but not legally dependent parents, like are there some cool strategies there? And number two, can they be, one particularly is in his last years of life, lots of medical problems, and can I set up him in this trust, and are there like permanent insurance policy or some kind of insurance policies that I can get on him, life insurance wise, that don't have anything to do with his health?
Yeah, I've never written them, but there's final expense policies, and you can like buy them from like 5 different companies because they have a threshold of how much they'll issue because they're not underwriting it, and you could go buy multiple of those, and then those have to pay out.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know someone that's really good at that. I'm not good at it, but I could hit them up because they were at an event I spoke at in December.
He's really unhealthy, so
Yeah.
I'm just worried about him. But of course, this whole generational wealth thing would be really a blessing if that could
Yeah.
go there and that could go to my kids one
It
day.
won't be a lot, but you'll
Yeah.
be able to get some.
But he would feel good about it too because
Yeah.
he doesn't have a lot to give, so that would mean a lot to him too.
Yeah.
One small thing, you get accident only policies, like up to $500,000, which, might not.
No, those aren't accident policies. Those are final expense policies I'm talking
I know
about.
you mentioned that.
Oh.
Mutual own law sells accident-only policies.
Oh, okay.
Which is, again, so that's just one, just kind of side note, not perfect, but side note.
Okay.
To have money. And there's actually some annuities that actually you can put in the market, and then basically, whatever the market growth is from the time you invest when they pass away, you can get either 25 or 40% accelerator on that cash value. So.
Yeah, he knows that stuff really well. I'd talk to him about that.
So that for whenever I have someone that's just not healthy, but they're in legacy mode.
Yeah.
Like that way, let's say you just invest $100,000 and it just grows to $100,000 and then someone dies, right? So instead of the family getting $200,000, they'll get $240,000 because there's a $40,000 accelerator on the growth as a death benefit. So there's like a fee, like about like 1.5 or something like that for the product. But whenever I have a client that's in legacy mode and they're just not healthy, you
Yeah.
talk about that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
Something I'll say is like when I did Cash Cabin with Garrett, like I had questions about a bunch of stuff that I was investing in, and like I think we only took 45 minutes to go over my whole financial picture, and he like dialed it in and had the I's dotted and T's crossed and reassured me, and it was like crazy, like just the amount of information that this guy has in his head, and then like it was just a matter of a list of names, like call this person for X, call this person for Y, call this person for whatever, and it's like, I've been looking for years to find really competent people in these different places, and I just left with like a list of names, and it was just done, and I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, and because Joey's like really put a lot of effort into his finances in the last few years and dialing it in, so it made that easy. But some people are like, well, I'm doing pretty well. It's like, yeah, he was doing well. We got to dive into a whole other cool shit that was like a lot more exponential. So like, I love that with the one-on-one because you don't get that from my financial team. That's more like, we're dialing in the media thing together and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, collaborating. Yeah.
So if you have, say you have $300,000 or $400,000 in a 401k right now,
Yeah.
you leave it in there?
Yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily take it out. What my job would be is like, where can I create the offsets? Now, depending on what other offsets we have, everybody can do a backdoor Roth. It's just a matter of whether that makes sense based upon your whole tax picture. So it's good that you have something there. It's just that I want to create a strategy so you don't leave it there forever. You could move to self-directed, potentially there might be some options there, but I would look more at like the fees, the expenses, and that kind of stuff, and minimize that first, and then see what we could do. And then there's also a thing. How old are you?
50. I just turned 50.
Yeah, there's a thing called the 72T where we could start taking systematic distributions without penalty, and start getting some of it out.
The other thing is, and I might have talked to Carrie about this before, but that I'm a VIP client of Ben's, so that's not cheap, right?
Right.
So can I write that off?
Well, for sure.
See,
100%.
my accountant, he's like,
Yeah, that's easy. That's an easy write-off.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Like, you can literally almost write everything off if you.
Well, especially that. Like I would. Yeah, that would hold up in an audit in 2 seconds, no problem. They'd skip right over.
For stuff like home office, things like that, you have to own the home because you're a renter there? Like,
You don't have to own the home. For Augusta, you don't have to own the road. It does not specify in the tax code, own or rent. You will find some CPAs that will say that you have to own it, but I've researched with the tax attorneys, there's nothing in the code that says that. There's nothing, it's like, yeah.
Is there a way if you own a current home that you intend to turn into an Airbnb that you could cost seg, like structure the transaction in a way that you could cost segment current primary residence by turning it into an Airbnb and take that bonus depreciation?
I mean, most of the time, cost seg is only going to work on commercial property, but
I just got pitched hard on that recently. I'm actually in the middle of due diligence on that same strategy.
Well, I know you can cost seg residential.
Right.
I do know that, and it's only if it's short term, if you're not a qualified real estate professional. So I do know that to all be true. But I was just curious about if you knew the strategy.
we could just have my cost, I'll have my cost seg firm talk to you. They're good.
It's like transferring, really the question is like transferring from like a personal asset that I own to like a business asset that I own and doing the cost.
We just have the cost seg people look at it. I'm a good 30,000 foot view. I'll have to ask those guys on those details.
I've got a question about 1202. I just restructured my company so that we could take advantage of that. But,
Of what, 1202?
Yeah, 1202.
Nice.
And we're a medical services business.
Mhm.
So that excluded us from a lot of the savings. Is there any specific strategy that you know that might allow us to take advantage of more of that?
Yeah. We start separating out pieces of the business if there's certain things that we can create, like IP and stuff like that, to do it. Yeah. Yep. I mean, we work with so many people. We work with so many doctors over the years, dentists, chiropractors, functional medicine people, and we found ways to make a lot of stuff work, and it all holds up. Like, I'm not going to do anything that puts someone in the gray. I'll make, people like, can we do this and this? I'm like, yeah, if you actually do it. But if people say, well, I'm going to just do this and say I'm doing it. I'm like, we're not your people. But I know you weren't asking that. I just know that, I'm just saying we know how to do it and it's not going to get you in trouble.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will say, not so much a question, but I did go to one of Garrett's 2-day tax strategy workshop, and it was an absolute game changer. But what's really cool is he has a whole worksheet where you just check.
I'm giving it to him for free.
Oh, is that really?
I'm giving that worksheet.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you just follow this worksheet, guys, it blows your mind. You'll save 6 figures from one worksheet. Swear to God.
It's awesome. Yeah. Just make sure you on its
Tag him on
IG.
I really like all this stuff, right? But I like it from the fact that it's going to benefit me, but I hate it too. I can't imagine a more miserable way to spend my time than doing the things that you're talking about,
Which things?
For me personally. Just all the detail required to make that a reality. I love what I learned, but then
You get that shit done. Fuck, dude, I can have that done for you in 3 months.
Okay.
It's not you doing it.
Yeah, I just I would be overwhelmed at the thought of structuring all of that, and it would
It's like the shit you used to do with internet marketing that's boring to you and easy. It's easy. Like when I sat down with Joey, you don't have to, you just have to be in the driver's seat where we go, here's your options. You go, I like this one. Great, we could do that. When if you're in multiplier with me, I'm making that shit, that's more invest in yourself, grow yourself. That's fun stuff.
I spend maybe 2 or 3 hours a quarter managing this whole reality now. Because my bookkeepers are, separate from the business, but they're really good. And they're actively looking for tax advantages for me to take. So I literally meet with them 1 time a quarter. My accountant, I meet with him 1 time a quarter.
And even my meetings are 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's a tax
When I do
attorney
that,
as
yeah.
well. It's a 30-minute.
And I fuck around that whole call. I'm like, hey, what can we do to write off that's new. And then I just make shit up and they're like, dude, come on. And I'm like, no, for real, we can't write that off? I'm like, I just bought a Can-Am. I think we should be able to write that off.
Yeah, you weren't here yesterday when Walt shared like his aversion towards working out, but that's my aversion towards this. So, like, it would be like the most miserable
What you
thing
gotta
in my
think about
time.
is like, if you're paying, I don't know, whatever it is, let's say you pay $500,000 a year in taxes,
Yeah,
but all of a sudden you're paying $200,000 a year, you make $300,000, and you put in what, 10 hours a month,
yeah.
3 hours a month.
No, I get it. I just, it's like doing an expense.
Well, that's why it's good to have a team.
Yeah.
It's good to have it. Like, dude, you know how much time I spend in spreadsheets? So fucking little.
Yeah,
I'm the conceptual guy. I've got a team that helps me. Yeah.
yeah.
Other questions?
Just a comment. Also the comment you made about writing off obviously again with Ben, so I have the sauna, the ice bath, cold plunge, all that kind of stuff. Writing off the gym, I mean,
It's the maintenance of it. You can't write off the equipment you buy. It's all the maintenance.
just the maintenance.
All the maintenance, but all that.
I mean, you're maintaining it an hour and a half every day. You're dusting it. every day.
This is like this shit wrong people. Things all the time.
Yeah, Ben's been a client of mine long term, so you can ask him.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, thanks.